Hello and welcome back to the BraindAI Podcast. I'm your host Lenka. This is the show for digital agencies and innovative brands focused on predictable growth. We deliver AI solutions and systems required to streamline client acquisition and automate service delivery, ensuring you are maximizing your capacity to scale. Today, I'm excited to welcome Kyle Goward, manager and key leader at Oddball Marketing, full-service digital marketing agency based on the Central Coast. Oddball has been helping businesses stand out and grow for over a decade by combining creative strategy, data-driven campaigns, and a wide range of digital services, from website design and SEO to paid media, content, and brand development. In this episode, we'll explore how Oddball has grown, where Kyle sees opportunity and tension in agency leadership today, and what's next for agencies chasing both creativity and efficiencies. Kyle, welcome to the show.
Oh, such a lovely intro. Thanks, Lenka. Thanks for having me.
Let's start at the beginning. How did Oddball Marketing come to the life 13 years ago, and what originally drew you into this specific agency?
Sure. So it started actually as, I believe, Oddball Web Solutions. The founder, Mike, just wanted to do websites. Marketing sort of came later. Little small startup. He had a business partner back then who I think he eventually bought out. And then over time, the team grew and started that logical flow that I think a lot of agencies do, where you do a website and then people ask if you can do SEO for that website. So you learn SEO, and then people go, oh, well, can you do Google Ads and SEO? And then you learn Google Ads, and so on and so forth, until it became a full service agency with, experts in each of the marketing channels, not just web. And then in terms of what drew me to it, it's actually my first marketing role is Oddball. It's the only marketing business I've ever been in. So I guess the honest answer of what drew me was obviously it was the first one who said yes. But no, I mean, since being in Oddball, it's just been fantastic because, agency is such a fast-paced learning environment. So for someone who is still quite young in my career, it's allowed me to learn so much, have so many different opportunities that I probably wouldn't have got if I'd been in-house just as a marketing coordinator or manager in a business somewhere. So that skill development and that, I guess, autonomy that Oddball lets you have, that was evident from the get-go, and that's why I've enjoyed it and why I've stayed.
You just recently stepped into general manager role. How has your perspective on the business changed since taking over that position?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I mean, obviously you get that peek behind the curtain, right? So you see the inner workings of the business and you start to have influence over those things. So I guess it lets you appreciate opportunity and risk a lot more, because there are ramifications in the business beyond just what affects you in your little silo that you're working in when you're just focused on that productive output. The other thing as well, though, is it just you have more buy-in, right? So I'm someone who, to work anywhere or do anything, I have to believe in it. And obviously I believed in Oddball enough to go through the process of becoming the general manager. But now that I'm in that role, it's even more motivating being in a position of belief and really feeling like I can influence and make the business better, which helps me, helps Mike, the founder, and obviously helps the team as well. The better the business does, the better we all do. So that's been extremely motivating.
Love it. Oddball marketing revenue also increased year on year significantly. I think you mentioned now 30%, which is not a small feat. What do you think actually drove that growth?
Yeah, so it was, I can tell you the one most significant thing was client retention. So marketing agencies, just as an industry standard, tend to have quite a bit of client churn. And through a few sort of key things we changed, some sort of personnel changes to our regular kind of retainer cadence with our clients. We were able to sort of secure I personally, when I was in the client relationship role at that time, had a full year of 100% client retention.
Wow.
And then that flowed through the rest of our client service department as well. So yeah, just retention. It's all well and good to get a customer, but if you lose a customer at the same time, you're not going anywhere. So locking in that 100% retention just meant every additional client that we onboarded last year was this net positive growth to revenue. And because the business model is that they're repeat clients, that is magnifying its effect over time. We achieved 30% growth last year, and we set ourselves the same target to do again in 2026 is another 30% growth. Very exciting.
Yeah, it is very exciting. Last year felt like you're building foundation for a bigger kind of year ahead because, you're scaling and you're growing. What did you deliberately put in a place to support the next level of growth?
So I would say that it's twofold. So one is we've really focused on onboarding and training. What we've found historically looking at the business is people who came in at a graduate or junior level, like within kind of 1 to 2 years experience, have typically actually performed better over time than hiring people with, potentially decades of experience. We've sort of found that salaries tend to outpace skill growth. Right. So there tends to be a kind of young phase of a person's career where they're learning a lot and growing a lot. And then towards the back half of people's careers, they tend to sort of stabilize and that growth slows down. So one of the core things was focusing on how we get the onboarding right, bringing in young, motivated people with high aptitude and getting them to a point where they're being productive, within 3 months. Whereas in the past, we'd had juniors who, they might not really be kind of making themselves profitable per se until much later in their development cycle. So that's been one of the things to help scale. Because obviously investing in junior talent, the upfront salary cost is lower. If their skills then develop quickly, you get a really awesome team member who's sort of punching above their weight. And then obviously over time, the remuneration then keeps up because they're sort of paying it forward. They get this really rapid on-ramp into becoming a professional. And we get the benefit then of investing all of that training and time into them through their output later. So that's been something that's been really, really useful. And then the second thing has been obviously trying to implement AI now in key aspects of the business to both help scale things, but also just to bring down the amount of productive time required on certain tasks so that we can sustain more clients without needing to put on as many people.
Yeah. I can only imagine how structured and well organized you must be. Onboarding, especially juniors, takes time and effort, but also good processes in place. I know many agencies that struggle with it. To your point, there's a benefit bringing them relatively in a cheaper cost. However, how fast they can get on board, how fast they can start making any impact, that's another question.
Absolutely.
With quite solid team now and ambitious targets, what's the biggest bottleneck you're feeling right now? Would it be on a sales, delivery, positioning?
Yeah, probably our sales. I mean, the irony any marketing person will probably tell you is the hardest person to market is yourself.
Yes.
Because you sort of lose objectivity. Stuff that you tell your clients, it's a no-brainer to do. You're the only client of yours that you haven't done it for. It's always yourself. But yeah, sales and marketing is probably the thing. I think partly because that level of growth hasn't been necessarily the case over time. So obviously the business took a hit during COVID, like virtually all businesses did, because if half our clients closed down, they don't need marketing anymore. So, that was sort of the situation. So last year was the first year where we really grew at quite a high rate in a short period of time. And it's sort of, I guess, put a spotlight on aspects of the business that can't handle that growth. And one of those has been sales, because realistically, we haven't had a dedicated salesperson or a dedicated, I guess, sales system. It's mostly just been client service managers who are managing our ongoing accounts are also doing sales as a side aspect of their role, but there hasn't been one person who's really owned it. And that's going to be one of the biggest constraints to remove this year is how do we really own our sales and have a proper system in the same way that we systemize most other areas of the business.
Yeah. You mentioned a cognitive mismatch agencies feel around AI's opportunity versus anxiety. Where do you personally sit in that tension?
Sure. Look, it's a hard one to answer. I think my approach to life is sort of, you have to plan, right? You can't be day by day, but you need to also be able to sort of hedge your bets and be a bit reactive, right? So the way I kind of approach it is as long as I'm opening more doors than I'm closing ahead of myself, sometimes I think that's the best thing you can do. So if I try to tell you what do I predict being like 10 years down the track with AI. I don't know. It could have unlocked this utopia where no one has to work and we all just pursue whatever interests us and everything's fantastic. Could be the total opposite where no one has jobs, nothing was able to keep people, give people income and everything's terrible. I don't know. I'm not going to pretend to be some world leading expert on that. If I was to look at just specifically the business in the next couple of years, I think what's probably going to happen is because more people less agencies can do more work. So I think there will definitely be a case where people will fall behind, whether that's individuals or businesses. And I think you'll find there'll be less businesses doing more work for more clients. So the key is you have to embrace AI, no matter what, right? Whether you believe it in or not, you have to, because everyone else is. I think in the short term, there's significant opportunity there for just the kind of do it for you model, in that we still know how to do it better than someone trying to DIY it, or a marketing manager who's just on their own in a business without all that rounded skill set. We still know how to do it better. And as long as we're using AI, we have a slogan in our business that AI is for great work at scale, right? So as long as we're bringing our great work at scale with AI, I think there's phenomenal opportunity. Down the track, who knows? I think I see other avenues open up where, while business owners, small and large businesses, will rush to embrace it, they still don't have the core knowledge of things to necessarily use it well or understand how it's being used. Even just, let's say a marketing manager uses it for a bunch of stuff. Do they know if it's working, right? Can they report that back up to the stakeholders that the tools they're using are working? If they don't have that core knowledge, they still can't do that. And I think the anxiety that, say, I may feel in the marketing space, I think most business owners will feel to some degree, and anyone who can provide calm and reassurance during a phase of uncertainty is set to do well. And I think Oddball's approach to marketing has always been very educational, making sure that the client understands the direct impact. We don't sort of just talk about metrics that don't matter. It's how is this actually affecting your business, whether it's the money you're making, whether it's getting you better lead quality, whatever. What are the tangible impacts? And giving people that reassurance, I think, will stand the test of the next few years, regardless of what composition of that is us doing it or us advising or us teaching. I'm not sure. But yeah, I think that knowledge and experience that we've got will definitely bode us well for the future.
Yeah, I love it. It's no question if you're going to implement AI, it's just a question when. Agreed with you. I think agencies are slowly getting into it, but there's just so much misunderstanding still. Like just plugging few AI agent here and there, or like creating content with ChatGPT isn't necessarily the automation and workflow and the power of AI that you could utilize these days. That was the main reason for me starting the BraindAI. Bridge that gap between, to support not just agencies but companies in general. Because to your point, I believe agencies work it out. It's just amount of effort and time. No one has this. It's not about I can't do it. Surely you could, but who will be running the business? Who will be keeping those clients happy? Who will be onboarding new clients? So I think we agency need to start being a little bit more open to collaborate with third-party providers. And the same as they're advising of working with the agencies starting to realizing that they need help in any aspect of it. It could be from retention point of view, bringing new leads in and supporting the sales funnel. I'm starting to realize, okay, AI is so big. It's just so much more that I could chew right now. And we need someone who can guide us, who can help us to build the infrastructure for it.
Yeah. And it's a good point, because the same question I might get from a prospect is, well, shouldn't I just employ a marketing person myself to be cheaper? I've already got some people who've used Facebook a couple of times. Can't they do my ads for me? Like, it's those similar kind of objections that I'm used to handling from a marketing agency point of view, that you're probably now experiencing from marketing agencies.
Yeah.
I've got a developer, we're pretty techy. I'm sure we could figure this all out. And I mean, we've been down that road, right? So for a fair bit of last year, we had our own developers working on things. And it's not that it hasn't been successful in the sense that it's definitely saved time or made some people's jobs easier and things like that. But I think the key mindset shift that I and probably a lot of other agencies need to have is it's not just about doing what you're currently doing a bit quicker or a little bit better. It's about, well, I guess where the opportunity lies is, can this allow us to do stuff that we just actually couldn't do before? Or does this make things so fast, so reliable that it's not a case of just saving a bit of time? It's like, this is an aspect of the business you don't have to worry about now, and how much time and attention that gives you back to focus on other areas of the business.
Yeah, we that agencies using AI different ways. They do it in-house. They kind of work with external expertise. What I'm hearing, you did a bit of both. Which one do you prefer? What would be the ideal scenario for you moving forward?
We haven't done an external at all.
Okay.
So
Also, you brought it. Okay, got it.
yeah, so just internal. So basically, we've got developers as part of our regular service delivery, and I suppose the concept was, well, look, we've got these people, let's turn them to our own implementation. And look, it's not. Again, it's not that it hasn't been successful. It's that if I was to look at the result, my question would be whether the time invested was worth the result. And in the long term, it could be if each of the learnings that these internal people are, I guess, taking away from each project allows them to do future projects faster. But the trouble is, if it's not a case where I'm wanting to make one of our business's offerings AI, i.e., if I can't make this billable in some way, I don't think the effort is worth the result necessarily at this stage based on what we've been able to achieve. I think it was fine at the time that we did it, but now the level of AI use is getting so much more sophisticated. And probably the biggest challenge I think we've had is just keeping across what's current. So, like any one person in the business who's got AI as a kind of side project, right? It's a side project. There's no person who I've gone, I don't care if you spend 10 hours a week researching the latest software that might be the best thing to use for this narrow problem that we're trying to solve. No one has that capacity right now. So they're working with tools they're familiar with, like ChatGPT, Gemini, etc., but they're using them to the extent of their current knowledge, and then they're only expanding that knowledge when they hit a wall and have to problem solve. Whereas I think the benefit of having someone who's made it their job, their career, their business to try to absorb as much of this as possible, I guess, long story short, it's like sometimes it's better to just follow someone's path than try to sort of forge one yourself, and yeah, I think that's where we're at.
Yeah. And look, I think that's okay. No one is expert in everything. It's like when you ask SEO guy to set up, paid ads. Yeah, probably they can, but how well, it's just, this is why I feel like niching down or being a little bit more specialized in certain areas will become a thing again. I read a research the other day that generalists tend to earn 24% less than specialized professionals, simply because it's amount of knowledge that someone needs to understand across all these platforms, across all these crafts is just so massive. You just don't have capacity as a one individual become really great at everything. It's just impossible.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing is, they fit a kind of awkward niche, because if you're an individual who can do everything, to get a role where you feel you're paid fairly for the amount of knowledge and skills you have, you'd be trying to get jobs in places that have whole teams. So they don't need one person to do everything. Right? If anything, it's a risk for them probably to have a person who can do everything, which locks you into probably applying for jobs where you're the only marketing person, but then any company that has no other marketing infrastructure probably can't afford to pay you what you feel you're worth if you can genuinely do everything possible at a really high standard. So it's a tough spot to find yourself.
So true. When you're applying these days for a brand side roles, they would love everything, like they just don't compensate you enough. So
yeah.
So what's going to happen? What will be interesting to see how this market will shift in the next year or two. while we're talking niches and a little bit of specialization, have you considered niching a little bit more deeply into service-based businesses, or staying broad is kind of your kind of strategic advantage, you think? Oddball.
No, we're definitely looking at niching into service and potentially even niching further within that into particular industries potentially. It's something that not through design has mostly happened anyway. There's a lot of service-based businesses on the coast. A lot of our early clients, our offices tend to be in sort of more industrial areas. So a lot of our early clients were a lot of the local trades just kind of going, oh, well, I'll go knock on that door and see if they can help me, So I think especially the early team kind of cut their teeth on a lot of small commoditized service-based businesses. As the business has grown, I think we've probably just found that that's what we prefer and what we're good at. Not to say that at this stage we would turn away e-com. We've got lots of e-com clients that are really happy and we do good work for. But I think to your point, I think specialization over time will just be key, because the question is going to become, can any one place have the, I guess, capability and the knowledge to service all these different types of businesses, as the marketing tools they're using to do that are changing so rapidly. But yeah, I think service-based, it's also, things like WordPress versus Shopify, for instance. So like WordPress is definitely our, I guess, preferred platform. Obviously, a lot of businesses will come with Shopify, and it's not that we'll turn them away, but, even just that as an example, right? Being as fluent in WordPress as you are in Shopify, that's an extra skill set. So even on like a CMS with a website, you can't spread yourself and claim to be an expert in every single thing. So that's an area right there where just naturally we've found we've got a specialization. And I'm sure there's lots of other examples I could think of through the business. So yeah, definitely service-based businesses, that's how I see the future for us looking. But if any of our e-com clients happen to listen, that's not to say that we're turning the books.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah.
That's actually pretty funny about the WordPress. The other day, I had a podcast with the agency owner who specializes in just the building WordPress websites and consultancy. And he's been doing it for many years, obviously, as you guys. And WordPress been around for so long, but I'm finding super fascinating that even today in 2026 is such a high demand platform, considering how many others are out there for lead gen, and me coming from AI space, seeing capabilities other platforms can do. WordPress is still, you need developer, you need to put the time and effort into it. It's not quick website necessarily, and it's still the preferred option. I just finding very fascinating. I don't think it's going anywhere.
I think it's got over 50% market share. So all websites, more than 50% are built on WordPress, which is incredible. I could be wrong on that, but I think it is. No, I think it depends. If I had a prospect come to me and say, oh, look, I really want your help. I want to build a website. And I said, oh, okay, tell me about your business. And they said, oh, I've just gone out on the tools on my own. It's literally like the first day of my business. I haven't even got a customer yet. Look, does that person need a full WordPress website built by an agency? No, right? They're mostly going to be word of mouth probably for the next couple of years anyway, while they kind of build themselves up. So something like a Wix or a Squarespace that is fairly intuitive and common, like most people have heard of them, if they turn to that and use that, that's fine. But over time, as the business grows, as you start to want to factor in like SEO and AEO in particular and these different things, and if you start to want the website to be able to do some more complicated things, you start needing those plugins and stuff like that, then it's definitely, I think at that point, it's time to go to WordPress. It's just one of those ones where, it might not be as easy for the DIY route, but for an agency who's using it all the time, it's a pretty good mix of simplicity with high customization.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you so much. Before I let you go, I do have a last question. How would be the best way to get in touch with you if someone would like to chat or learn a little bit more about Oddball marketing?
Sure. Well, to speak to me specifically, just email me is the easiest way. So kyle@oddballmarketing.com.au, and then obviously the website. So if you want to come and check us out, oddballmarketing.com.au. Everything we do on there, come have a read and give us a call.
Thank you so much. For all our listeners, I will link all this below down in the description. Let us know what you thought about today's episode, and we'll be here with another interesting topic soon. Thank you, Kyle. Bye.
Thanks, Lenka.